December 2016, and I'm working at the largest tech company on the face of this planet. We have a team offsite, and my colleague David is sharing individual awards in order to recognize the people on our team for their outstanding work during the year. Mine is a little comic figure, sitting at a table surrounded by a raging fire. And the little speech bubble says, "This is fine." They hand me the award for frequently showcasing unwavering resilience. I'm known as the person that walks through the fire and finds something positive in every situation. I get to connect with my stakeholders in a way that few can, and I stick through difficult experiences. I feel extremely proud of the title. This is exactly what I stand for and identify with. And I'm sure you either know someone like that, or maybe you're realizing that person is you. I invite you to put your hand up in the air for a moment and count on your fingers the number of attributes of a successful person that resonate with you. Put a finger up if you have high standards, you have a strong desire to succeed, you're willing to put in long hours, you're goal-oriented and disciplined, and you embrace challenges and you strive for improvement. Remember the number of fingers you have up, and for now, you can put them back down. Fast forward to July 2018. On the outside, I have it all. I work at the heart of Silicon Valley at Google with great pay, benefits, and promotions. On the inside, diagnosis, burnout. All this time, the writing is on the wall. For months now, I've been feeling so stressed, tired, and anxious, and I just don't feel like myself anymore. I have a hard time sleeping, waking up in the middle of the night with a pounding heart, thinking about all the things that I still need to get done. And the next day at work, I feel overwhelmed and exhausted. But how in the world did I get here? I guess it didn't really matter how resilient everyone around me thought I was, because as it turns out, I wasn't. Remember the number of fingers you've had up when we looked at the attributes of a successful person? Take the fingers back up. And now I invite you to put a finger down with each of the following attributes again that resonate with you. And this is the part where you get to be really honest with yourself. Put a finger down if you push yourself to exhaustion, you struggle with saying no, you prioritize work over well-being, you're overly critical of yourself and others, you love control, and you struggle to delegate. Now, think about all the accomplishments you've had in your life. And now, look at your hand. What are you left with? What if the drive to succeed can sometimes become our biggest roadblock? Let me tell you how it all started for me. I grew up in Germany in the 90s, and when I was 10 years old, I learned a pretty powerful lesson about love and grades. I had just transitioned from elementary school to middle school, and I started to get what was for me bad grades. In elementary school, I was a straight A-grade student, but in middle school, I started to get B's, C's, and sometimes even D's. It continued on for about a year, and I was sick of it. Even though my parents never put any pressure on me, it was really frustrating to me that my sister, who's 2 years older than me, was a straight A-grade student without putting in any effort, while I was getting B's, C's, and D's. So I decided to change something about that. When the next school year started, I would come home from school, sit down, copy all of my notes meticulously again, and practiced everything I had learned in each of the subjects. My B's and C's turned into A's across the board. Score. And my dad was really proud of me, and he praised me for my accomplishments, telling me that because of my hard work, I learned far more valuable lessons about life. And that, in my child brain, was the real kicker. That's the first time when I got a hit of that high achiever drug, and I learned that hard work pays off. With this new approach, I graduated as a top A-grade student in high school, a top A-grade student in college. I learned to speak 3 languages fluently, and I worked at top companies across 5 different countries. In order to keep up with the increasing demands from high school to college to working at these top companies, I developed some interesting habits and routines. I worked late hours. I took extra shifts during the weekend. I took on extra projects in order to stand out, and I ignored every signal that my body needed a break. But I wasn't aware how my habits and routines contributed to the day in the summer of 2018 when I burned out. On the contrary, I did what I'm sure many of you and me in this room have done before. I made my employer responsible for my high stress levels. Do you know that 44 million Americans quit their jobs in 2023 and 3.4 million quit their jobs in January of this year alone? This is insane. The reason for them leaving? 43% of people say that they're thinking about quitting their jobs because their work environment is overly stressful. When you think about your frustrations at work, who do you blame for poor well-being and work-life balance? I know who I blamed. My boss, my colleagues, unrealistic deadlines, my partner. Everything and everyone outside of me was responsible for how I felt inside. Over the past 5 years, I worked with over 10,000 top performers from Fortune 100 companies. And I started to see a recurring pattern that I recognized in myself. Successful people like you and me work hard to maintain their status and achieve their goals. When they start to get into the feeling of they feel frustrated and stuck and oftentimes burned out, they change their jobs. And 6 to 12 months later, they find themselves in the exact same cycle again. And that is exactly what happened to me. Whether taking medical leave, changing jobs, or starting my own business, I was still the result of the habits and routines that I started to develop as a 10-year-old schoolgirl. I was prone to burn out because that's what I knew, and that's who I was. And you know what? I did leave corporate to escape burnout and start my own business because, as we all know, that's the least stressful thing I could have picked. And sure enough, 2 months in, my calendar looked exactly the same way as it did when I was a global project lead at Google. It was crammed with meetings and I had 0 time for myself. So who was to blame now? My clients, right? I started to invest a lot of time and over $100,000 in myself in order to find out what exactly I need to do to sustain my performance over time without the stress and burnout. In 2016, for example, I started a regular yoga practice 3 to 4 times a week. And don't worry, this is not about telling you that that's what you need to do more of in order to remain successful. Because even though I was able to stretch into a pretzel-like yoga position and bend backward like a contortionist, it didn't stop me from feeling like a rubber band stretched to its limits. It didn't address the root cause of my problem. I would go back to work and feel just as stressed as before. Run from meeting to meeting, answer emails in between, try to please everyone, and do my work until late at night in order to get my work done. So I continued my quest. A 400-hour yoga teacher training certification, because maybe more yoga would eventually do the job. A cognitive behavioral therapy certification, a 2-day intense stress management workshop in Berlin, a 1-year coaching certification, and countless experiments on myself later, it finally clicked. And I made a discovery that profoundly changed the way I operate today. My conclusion: invest in yourself first. To test this hypothesis, I ran a study in 2020 with 20 top performers, successful leaders from renowned companies and highly successful entrepreneurs, in order to measure the impact it would have when they start to invest in areas that drive true success, develop better habits and routines for themselves. And that's ultimately what I call the birthplace of the peak performance method today. In order to measure the effectiveness of this highly structured and systematic approach, I used validated scales that would be too boring to put up on the slide. And I wanted to measure things like sleep quality, stress and anxiety levels, and performance improvements. And what we found blew my mind. First of all participants were clinically depressed without having any idea about it. But also, when they started to invest just 1 hour per week in developing better habits and routines in areas such as time management, setting boundaries, and self-care, just to name a few, we saw significant changes in their well-being and performance. Over the course of 10 weeks, we were able to show significant changes in the following areas. Their stress levels decreased by 45%. Their sleep quality improved by 48%. And their depression levels decreased by a staggering 71%. And you can imagine that if you feel less stressed, you sleep better, and you feel not as depressed anymore, it has a significant impact on your well-being and your performance levels. This study proved my hypothesis right. When you invest in yourself and you develop habits to put yourself first and not try to be the people pleaser that says yes to every meeting and yes to every project and yes to every extra demand, but you're mindful of your own needs and the things that are actually a priority, you get to be more successful than ever before. Sounds completely counterintuitive. I get it. Didn't your mom and dad always tell you, since you were little, to not be selfish and help other people? But I truly believe that in the world of AI that we live in today, where everything seems important and everyone wants your attention, the true secret to your success is how you show up for yourself. I invite you to get a little bit more comfortable in your seat. You can put your arms down and maybe even close your eyes. Imagine a day where you wake up in the morning and instead of answering 5 emails and scrolling through your social media feed, you take 10 to 15 minutes just to nourish yourself. Imagine a day where instead of being in meetings all day long and you work until late at night to get your work done, you have a few meetings in the day, but also a couple of hours to work on your projects. Imagine a workday where, instead of being reactive to everyone else's requests, you make clear decisions, not from a place of emergency and hassle, but from proactivity and leadership. And imagine coming home from work, and instead of being so exhausted that all you want to do is crash on the couch and watch a couple of hours of Netflix, you still have the energy to do the things you love and be fully present with your family. How would you feel at the end of that day? Happy, accomplished, successful? You're welcome to open your eyes again. This is what my day and the day of my clients looks like today. I built a successful 7-figure coaching business, And my clients received countless promotions, C-suite level titles, and made millions of dollars in salary increases and stock options. Is it easy? Absolutely not. I have to make very clear decisions every single day to put myself first. And some days I struggle. I just want to be glued in front of my computer, driven by the desire to succeed and impact this world. But today I know that because I put myself first, and I can be even more successful, and I am worthy of this life without the external recognition of a big deal or the approval of my dad, because he always loved me, no matter the grades. What is it back there? I hear you in the last row. Sounds great and all, but just doesn't apply to the work environment that you're in. I challenge that belief. I have worked with over 20 organizations and seen them invest considerable time and resources to train their employees. And sometimes we had 5 people show up to a 35-people class. 5 people. For a training that costs up to $15,000. I do believe that there's a shared responsibility between you and the organization, creating accountability and programs for you to learn. But if you don't show up and you don't take action, your organization can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars, and you will still complain about burnout. Think about this. If you hire a personal trainer to lose 25 pounds, and you never do the workouts, what changes do you think will you see in your life? Here is the good news. Remember the 5 attributes of a successful person? You have everything it takes to succeed. How about you apply this in your own life, for you? You never signed up for easy. You love the challenge and you thrive through learning. So the next time you find yourself feeling the pangs of burnout and finding yourself in front of the computer looking at job postings, pause and reflect. What habits and routines have contributed to you feeling this way? And will your habits and routines improve if you accept yet another job? This is your invitation to take that incredible ability you have, that unbelievable drive to succeed, and apply it by investing in developing better habits for yourself. Because when you put yourself first, you'll overcome burnout, you'll sustain success over time, and you'll no longer stand in the way of your own success.